once again.
Hey, and welcome back to my channel. I do apologise, the lighting is not amazing. I have got some equipment coming very shortly. I'm hoping it's going to get here in the next few days. But until then, I'm just going to have to deal with lighting. So, in October of last year, I decided to take a drug overdose of legal drugs. But I had a panic. My parents found out that I was doing it and they stopped me in time. Because I got stopped, I then proceeded to cut off all my hair. So this is why my hair is short. I will put a picture, if I can, down here of what my hair was like beforehand. So I actually cut it all off. I did it with a pair of scissors, and it looked, at the time, it looked completely horrific. I'd done a very bad job of it. The scissors weren't amazing, didn't do a good job. So I cut it all off, and then I went off to hospital. So when I got to hospital, I initially went in as voluntary. I said, I'll go into the psych ward, that's fine, I'll go in voluntary. So I was waiting around, it took several hours. I got into hospital about I would say about between 12:30 and 1. And then I actually got to the hospital, which I was then going to stay at, about 11:30 at night. So it was an extremely long day. I remember being taken to hospital, and this is my first time going to a psychiatric unit. And I remember getting on the way there, being so nervous, not sure what to expect, not sure what it's going to be like. And I got there, and initially I was freaked out. I thought, this is going to be a nightmare. I'm going to hate it. This is going to be horrible. Everyone's going to be horrible. No one's going to talk to me. It's not going to be a good place. I was incredibly wrong, to put it bluntly. So I went in voluntary, as I said. I thought I was going to London, but I didn't. I ended up in a hospital local. So I went in. They search all your bags and everything, so you're not allowed certain stuff when you go into a psych ward, which I'm going to do more about in another video. And I had to stay up and wait for the doctor, so it was a very late night for me. And to be honest, because it was my first night in a psych ward, I didn't sleep that very well, so it wasn't the best time in the world. And I had to wait for my stuff to be searched, so it took a good while. The next morning, I remember, I went into the breakfast room and I saw some people, sat down to have my breakfast. Immediately I got along with them. They're people that, some of them I'm going to be in contact with for the rest of my life, and the sort of friendships you make on the psych ward, you can't comprehend to in real life, because you're being forced into that situation, sort of thing. Everyone in that place is ill, so it's kind of an odd feeling being on the psych ward. So I initially spent the first few days as informal, which means I can leave whenever I like. Now, the thing is, I tried to leave when I liked. As I was making threats, which I'm not going to go into because I don't want to name people or go down that path, I was put on a section 4, which is what they term in the hospital as 72 hours nurses hold, which means they can hold you for up to 72 hours. You're not allowed to go home, you're not allowed to go out, and for me it was pending an assessment. So I was then sectioned, I think it was 48 hours in, I was sectioned. So I was section 2 under the Mental Health Act, which means that I can be held for up to 28 days. The reason why I was sectioned was because I was making these threats. I was in such a bad place when I got sectioned. When I first was put on a section, I stopped taking my meds, I just wasn't happy. I hated being in hospital. just stopped taking my meds, slept most of the time. It wasn't a good place. Towards the end, I did start taking my meds, and that was all good. But it was a long journey. So I spent the total of a month in this particular hospital, and it took me 3 weeks before I was allowed any leave. I think it was about 3 weeks before I could actually have leave. So when you're on a section, you are not allowed to go out unless you get something called a Section 17. Section 17 is what the doctor will write you up, which allows you to leave hospital. So for me, it could have had conditions on it. Some of them don't. It all depends on what the doctor had to say. It took me several weeks to get it, which meant I could only go into the garden, it was all in a closed space. So you could go into the garden, but you couldn't leave the hospital grounds if you don't have that leave and you're not informal. So being locked up, I must say, was extremely stressful, and it's something which I can't ever forget. You know, the hospital itself was nice, but being locked up and not having that freedom, if anyone here does end up going into a psych unit, please go informal. Do not get yourself sectioned, because getting sectioned is not fun. I've had it 4 times, so it was interesting. So I eventually did get my Section 17 leave, and I remember going outside for the first time, and it felt amazing. It felt like all my Christmases had come in one place. I'd never been so excited to go outside, to be part of the fresh air or anything. So it was amazing. You know, I was relieved, I was happy, I was outside. So it was an amazing feeling. When I was on my section, I did do something pretty interesting, actually. So I got Section 17 leave to go back home, escorted with my father. So I went to Leighton. So I went home with my family for a day, and I got myself a tattoo. So I'm going to try and show you now. It might not show because the lighting's not very good. So there it is, it's tiny. I'll put a picture in the corner if I can work out how to do it. But it basically says or I'll edit into here, just a quick picture. So it basically says my section number and a green heart to represent mental health. So I got that done when I was on section from hospital. So technically, whilst I was sectioned, I got myself a tattoo. I went back to hospital after my Section 17 leave, and I had to get permission to have the nappy rash cream on the ward because it was counted as a medicine. So they had to check with the doctors that I was allowed it. So I did try and explain. I said it's just something to help me with my tattoo and my healing. This one did take a wee bit to heal. It's only because I couldn't look after it properly. Next time I do recommend, if you are going to get a tattoo when you're in hospital, make sure you're capable of looking after it properly, because this one, it did heal quite a lot because I couldn't look after it properly. I wasn't in the best frame of mind or anything. So that was that. I had some amazing time on hospital, and I'm not kidding, I've made friends with people that I'm gonna never forget and that I'll probably have with for life. And that's the sort of thing people don't know about hospitals, is the sort of bonds that you can make, especially on psych wards, because you're having to be locked up. If you're on section, it's either talk to people or stay in your own sort of room. And I did lock myself away for days. I would sleep like crazy. It was insane. I tell you what, I've been out of that hospital now for several months. I have had a few sections here and there since then, but I wouldn't want to go back to being on a psych ward, because for me, it didn't help my condition. But I needed to be there in order to get the right step forward and to also get the help that I needed, which I am slowly getting there with that sort of help. I will be doing a video at a later date more about my condition, which is EUPD. So when I was on the ward, it was diagnosed as traits, if I'm right. So it wasn't amazing for me, because I felt like I was going around in circles. I was trying to find what was wrong with me, and I wasn't necessarily getting there. So